Everybody, welcome to this Cabinet meeting. We have a packed agenda to get through. Start by confirming that we have no apologies for absence. All the Cabinet members are here. Can I ask the Cabinet if any of them have any declarations of interest at all to make? No, thank you. In which case, let's look at the minutes of our last meeting, which was the 15th of February. Does anybody have any queries? Amendments to those minutes? No. Can I ask for your agreement to be accepted? Are they agreed? Thank you. Okay, in terms of announcements, just three things. The first is we would like to reflect yet again that we continue to send our support to those in Ukraine suffering terrible things, and to those in West Northants who have families around there. We admire your bravery and what you're going through. Just to draw attention, this is at the moment a community-led response to this. You will find details on the front page of West Northants' website of how you might get involved in supporting. Secondly, I'd like to reflect that today is International Women's Day with this year's theme, Break the Bias. That's important to us at West Northants Council. We have very strong commitments to equality, so we're glad to be part of reflecting and celebrating that today. Third announcement is simply just to suggest, in view, we had a number of people who've come along, particularly for item 10, which is the disposal of land at Sixfields. I'd like to suggest that we take that ahead of the other agenda items. Okay, not aware of any urgent business. So if we may, we'll move on to item 10. Malcolm is with you. We also have two speakers on this. So if you'd like to do an introduction, Malcolm. Our speakers in this order are Councillor Bob Purser and Councillor Sally Beardsworth. Malcolm, over to you.
Well, evening all. Right, sale of Sixfields land. Start off, there's a huge amount of time and effort that's been spent on this, as I'm sure all those involved will appreciate, particularly the officers. It's been going for a long time. It's a very complex issue because of the leases and what have you. And it's a very difficult thing we've had to deal with in our first year as a council. Anyway, we've spent lots of hours on it. We had lots of opinions, many opinions. Everybody's had the opportunity. Had a full council meeting where everybody could speak. We just listened. Primarily, that's what the objective was. I know lots of very good ideas. Some not quite so good, but lots of good ideas. So we're now in a position concluding this exercise, we hope, and I'll come back caveat in a minute. We've used our best judgment. We're trying to maximise the returns for the council and, of course, the residents of Northamptonshire in general. The site, as you're probably all very familiar with it by now, we certainly are, is subject to a number of leases and a number of different legal issues. We had a number of bids received. Everybody's followed this closely, I'm sure. And over the recent weeks, involving cash, overages, and other items, including the building of a stand in one of the offers. So it's been quite a varied thing. They've gone up each time, and not a thing we like to do, but that's what's happened. We've now taken all these items into account. We've hired the best professional help we can for advice and a balanced cast with benefits and certainty of a successful outcome or successful conclusion to the bidding. So it's time to wrap up these discussions, in my view. And so tonight, I'm recommending the Cabinet that we accept the CDNL bid. Key points there are £2,050,000 cash, bearing in mind we bought the land for £1. There's an overage on the land if it's sold unremediated. There's a buyback on some of the land for £1 without the stand being built. There are a few legal complications, hence a high degree of expectation of a conclusion. And there are personal guarantees from the owners, which is a key point of it. So that's the recommendation I'm going to make, but I will put a caveat on this so everybody knows where we all stand. The then within the recommendations, recommendation C will change, and it will have the Assistant Director, Assets and Environment, in consultation with the Director of Legal and Democratic Services and the portfolio holder, that's me. And unless I'm entirely satisfied with the T's and C's, because we're all very uncomfortable at this, it's T's, I will not okay the deal and sign it off. But if I'm quite satisfied, I'm satisfied it's in the best interests of the council and all the people that we're looking after, then I will sign it. But that's a caveat there. So, Chair, I would like to put forward those recommendations of 3.1. Thank you.
Thank you, Malcolm. Let's take our two councillor speakers, the first of which is Councillor Purser. Bob, welcome.
Thank you. I think we've as a group, made our comments known through the process. I won't repeat those. But what I'm really asking is, should we, once a decision has been made, do a review of the process we've been through and see whether there are lessons we could have learned? Personally, I think we should have started with a master plan for the site and then come up with the preferred options and then put those preferred options out to tender. But that's just my personal view. I wonder whether the officers should conduct a proper review of the whole process and learn lessons of how, given hopefully we will never have to deal with a similar situation again. But if we're dealing with these major projects, that we have a lessons learned from this one that we can put into practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Malcolm, do you want to comment?
Thank you, Bob. I think you're absolutely right. Bear in mind the history here. I mean, unfortunately, I've no history on this, so hopefully I've taken a clear view of it. I like to think I have, but you can never learn too much, can you? Thank you.
Thank you. And our second speaker is Councillor Beardsworth. Sally, welcome.
Thank you, Chair. First and foremost, can I say that I appreciate all the efforts the Cabinet have made to make this a very transparent and open mechanism for us all to put input and for the general public, because I think it's essential. With the legacy we've been left with the club, we all know we don't want to make any more mistakes. And I feel sure that the officers have done their very best to tie things up as best as possible. We've got to deliver the stand. It was a promise made 7 years ago, and we've really got to deliver on that. And I think that, to me, is the prime concern, that we get that done, so that the club can actually have hospitality and make some money out of that. Also, they had 7,000 people coming last week and won the match, and we've got to support them as a council to make sure that they, like with all our clubs, that they are successful and a means to succeed. So I appreciate all you've done, and I've explained to my group as much as I possibly can, and I'm as happy-ish as I can be, and I'm sure you all feel the same, because we don't want any more mistakes. This, you know, when you think you've had 3 leases to deal with for extended years, it's been a nightmare, and I don't envy you, you know, what you've had to do. So the Liberal Democrats will be supporting you on this, because we think it's important to get these things done and get it done right. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you for your comments. Probably not much to come back on. Malcolm, did you want to comment at all on that?
No, thanks, Sally.
Grateful to our speakers there. I think partly, Bob, master plan on this area, it's obviously not our land, it's occupied by a 150-year lease. I know officers have been involved, you know, along the journey when there's been discussion. So, for example, some of the early retail uses considered were not felt appropriate in terms of planning and so on. So we've had some opportunity to shape as we've gone along through this. Thank you for Sally for saying about a very open process. I think it's It has been, but no, it is true. Many people certainly in the town of Northampton want to see the stand delivered. This is a mechanism that allows us to do that without having necessarily been able to take full account of that in the financial assessment that needed to be done. It is a very complex situation. Back in 2011, the election was won by a manifesto to support sports clubs. The cricket club took a loan facility, didn't use it. They managed to transform their own finances. The rugby club built their new stand immediately, and that makes a contribution to their sustainability, which is great. And the issues of the football club were such that it became evident that hadn't been done well. Of course, the county council also lent money to Silverstone, leave have paid back early. So these things do work and bring prosperity. And let's hope we get it right this time. But it was in 2016, just as I took my job on at the borough, that we discovered the huge mistakes that had been made. And the three key things really were lack of due diligence. There was too much member involvement in the process, and there was not enough openness and transparency. So this has been a officer-led process throughout, without involvement, until around about last November, when the officers told us they had something to discuss, and we briefed all members. As you might recall, to that point, it was completely officer-led, to the point that I've had personally no contact with people from CDNL or indeed Sildara. That may probably seem rude, but perhaps we can press on and end that now and work together to deliver this. The criticism from the auditors was quite rightly right, and it continues to be something that those of us who had any involvement at all in the borough, whether involved in this decision or not, continue to apologise, and we hope that we'll put this right. But the public debate through the council meeting, which was not necessary, but flushed out an enormous number of helpful points. Some significant improvements have been made to this deal for the public since that time, and I would suggest to you this has been scrutinised to death now. We've absolutely looked at this and had the most incredibly open debate. Do any cabinet members have any further comments that they wish to make on this at all? Phil, did you want to chip in?
Well, it's been going on a long time, Chairman, and particularly for some of us around this table. It's good to see it get as far as it's got, and I thank all the officers for all the hard work that they've put in, and they've done a really good job in bringing it as far as we have. And I really do hope that it eventually, with Malcolm's approval, gets over the line. It's been going on a long time, and I think, you know, not just us as members, but the public will be pleased to see it done and dusted once and for all, and we can get on and deal with other things that are important to West Northamptonshire. So well done, everybody. Let's hope it makes it over the final hurdle. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Phil. Any further comments, Mike?
Just a brief comment. Hopefully, when that stand gets built, we'll see the club be able to do even more of that community work that we know they've got a good reputation for. So hope that can be further added to. And also obviously join Councillor Beersworth in wishing the team the best of luck over the next few weeks and get that promotion secured.
Absolutely. We'd all join you in that. Don't see any further hands, in which case I'm going to direct your attention back to the recommendations. As always, at section 3, we've added to the sort of delegation Malcolm to sign off with Catherine and with Stuart. So just simply ask you to confirm your agreement to those recommendations. Is that agreed? Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Takes us on to item 6 of our agenda. A few introductory comments from me on transformation update. Then with 3 speakers registered: Councillor Purser, Councillor Beersworth, Councillor Humphreys. So this is Q3 transformation. With the recommendations for us to note the update. And it covers the period, of course, from October to December, you'll see, and this theme will follow in further items, including item 8 on our new structure and new approach to transformation, which we think will work even better. This is an update on how it's been working during this quarter. It highlights something which is the new West Northants Grand Design, which is the overarching programme of transformation and corporate work to deliver the corporate plan priorities. Grand Design approach also introduces the new opportunities area, which is a new directorate, which will bring capacity to a number of areas that focus on community to enable them to thrive better. We established programme boards to govern delivery of the transformation priorities and the Grand Design, covering areas such as overall themes, which are live your best life, our thriving and prosperous communities, green and prosperous place, how we support our customers, what we buy, commission or sell, how we work, and then digital technology and innovation. So those programme boards have been accompanied by a revised programme management approach to ensure resources are assigned to the transformation priorities. Delivery of all the transformation programs is underway, with many having delivered key development days to enable their programs of work to push forward at a reasonable pace. There's closer alignment of the Transformation Program Management Office, along with the Digital Technology and Innovation Program, to streamline the delivery of the technology-based projects being a significant part of where the savings will come. So this quarter that we're looking at now saw the transformation team take on a further 13 projects, which means we've got 44 live projects running at the close of the quarter. Delivery of projects by the transformation teams yielded a broad range of customer and organisational benefits, and some examples of those are a review and analysis of hospital discharge planning to increase the number of patients leaving hospital to the best setting possible, as swiftly and easily as possible. Also, in response to national legislation regarding mandatory vaccinations, establishment of a system to record vaccination of care home staff to ensure that residents and fellow workers are protected. And as an authority, we can meet statutory requirements around that. With respect to test and trace, implementation of a system to increase the number of people affected by COVID who can claim a discretionary grant easily and quickly. That has been a success. Implementing a single customer service experience management system. So this gives us a shared view of customers so that they get a far better experience, and it increases the productivity with which we can deal with their queries. Also, design of a model of future ways of working that will enable us to be flexible, responsive, and a lean workforce, but also in doing so will drive income and also value across our property portfolio. Transformation projects are also delivering an aggregation of services from the former sovereign councils, and the disaggregation of services currently shared with Northamptonshire Council. We're also continuing to stabilise services following the move to unitary. Risk across the transformation portfolio remains within tolerance, with attention needed on service and enabler capacity, and to be able to cope with the total demand necessary to deliver the whole plan of transformation activity at pace. Focus moving forward for the transformation resource is to continue and enhance the delivery of the transformation priorities, working with the relevant executive directors and service leads. As I say, you'll see that this will also change in terms of how we will be delivering the whole area of transformation, moving it slightly more to a focus within each department, responsibility on the department to deliver these projects with the support of transformation team members. That's a quick summary from me on this. Then we have 3 speakers. Our first, over to you, Councillor Purser. Bob.
Thank you again. I'll try and be brief again. I welcome this proposal. This seems to be a good move forward, and hopefully I'm more interested in looking forward and how transformation works in the future period rather than what's happened up till now. I see the last year has been a sort of consolidation phase, and now this is the opportunity. I was very taken at the Members' Day that we had a couple of Saturdays ago about the importance of technology in the transformation process, and it's how we link transformation with technology that seems to be quite an important opportunity. And I'd really want assurances that that really is being built into the system, and recognizing that that actually does have some budgetary implications along the way if we're going to invest properly in technology. So that's a kind of question I've got. I suppose the second question is, are there budgetary implications of these changes. And I suppose the third question is, how long is it going to take to achieve this reorganisation of the transformation? Because really, transformation only begins when reorganisation is finished. So what's the timetable? So it's the budgetary questions and timetable questions, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. That's absolutely great. I can certainly assure you technology is right at the heart of this. A lot of this is the stuff that Mike Allen was particularly close to. Mike, I think you wanted to chip in, didn't you? I might add some comments to that.
Yeah, absolutely. On the technology point, I said this on the day itself, we've turned the spending back on. If you look on LinkedIn at the moment, you'll see 4 or 5 major IT roles out for recruitment. As well as that, what we're going to be coming up with is almost like a hit squad, a hit team to look at poor process. So if someone's manually keying a spreadsheet, why are they doing that? There's software that can do that for you. And manually keying a spreadsheet also leads to human error. And people get very worried about that. And they're, oh, well, what does that mean if I'm not doing that? Well, it means your time's freed up to do something else. Most specifically, from my point of view, spend time with customers on the front line rather than doing manual tasks that we can automate. So it's spending's absolutely back on in IT, and yeah, just have a look on LinkedIn. You'll see all the roles that are out at the moment. We'll get those in hopefully in the next few weeks, and we're already making really positive steps forward.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. There's certainly huge savings to be made to getting technology right, isn't there? Okay, in which case our next speaker is Councillor Bidsworth. Sally.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Councillor Purser. The Members Away Day was really interesting to come to. I hadn't been to one before because in June I was in hospital, so I couldn't come. But this one was particularly enlightening, and I think it just shows the way the authority is heading. And to be able to ask questions of individual departments was very useful. The only thing I can say, and I'll keep saying it, not everybody has a computer. Not everybody has a smartphone. And although it's very nice to think the majority have, and I know there is a lot of older people are very good on, but there's still a majority of people who can't afford these things. And though technology is very, very good, if you look what happened at the post office when the software screwed up completely and several people went to prison because of it. I think sometimes we have to have somebody doing the basic stuff to make sure that the software is doing the proper job we expect it to do. So although I agree that you can cut corners an awful lot with technology, I still think it's something we need to keep an eye on sometimes with somebody doing it manually, that you can actually make sure that we're not being sold a pig in a poke when we sold the actual things. But I'm very pleased with the growth and recruitment of the apprenticeships. I think that's really a good thing. There's lots of good things in here, so I'm not going to go. And you're meeting with the trade unions and getting a business case, I understand, which I think is very good. Staff training, I think, is essential. And I think it's actually changing some of the cultures as well, because we've got 4 organisations coming into one, and they've all worked differently in the past. So it's actually getting people to meld together and make sure that they understand that we're all working for the same cause. Thank you.
Thanks, Sally. I agree with all your comments, really. No, everything we do has to be absolutely reliable, tested and right, doesn't it? I'd agree with that entirely. And I think you're right about, the culture. And hopefully that's going to get easier as well when people are coming in and mixing in the same building. Being apart has had a significant impact on that, hasn't it? Yeah, thank you. Mike, do you want to chip in?
2 points, my usual retort on technology. When you automate things, it frees up time for our customer service people to spend face-to-face. That's really important. If you don't know the power of technology, then please Google the story, because I think it's brilliant. Google Elon Musk's Twitter account and what he tweeted to the president of Ukraine over their internet access. So obviously being heavily bombed, president of Ukraine tweeted to Elon Musk, can you make your Starlink satellites available in space for me so we can have internet access, because all of our ground stuff is, obviously we're at war. And he tweeted back, yes, sure. And I think within a couple of days, it was all sorted. And he's actually got an invitation. They had a Skype call yesterday, and Elon Musk has now got a worthy invitation there for when the war's over. So those people, even though they're at war, have now got internet access. So I think that's an amazing thing. So technology can be an amazing thing, and hopefully we can do some good things with it here.
Yeah, and actually, Sally, sorry, I meant to comment on your first point. We never forget there are some people who don't have internet access or are not ready to deal with it. So we maintain the face-to-face contact in all areas. And, you know, also the customer service, one of the nice things about freeing up customer service staff is exactly that. They can get a faster response. But we got quite an achievement, which we're going to be telling you about in more detail fairly soon. But over a recent period, we went for quite some time where we received, people have an opportunity to make complaints. They have an opportunity to make compliments. We received more compliments about our customer services than we did our complaints. But we'll probably get some info out to be a little bit more precise about that in the near future. Thank you for your comments, Sally. And final speaker, Councillor Humphreys. Rosie, welcome.
Thank you very much. I agree with the comments already expressed as regards the members' information morning. It was really helpful, very informative, and exciting to see what's proposed in many areas. I've got a really basic question, actually, as regards your transformation highlights. On page 14, you say list of all WNC staff roles categorized by worker type. I'd just be interested to have more flesh on the bones of that, and what information did you have already, and did you have any surprises?
Sorry, just what page were you referring to?
Page 14.
14.
Yeah, it's the first bullet point.
Okay, we'll probably get back to you. I've got the report starting on page.
Leader, I'm happy to come in if it
do you want to comment, Mike?
Yeah, so we have various worker types. We have field worker, flexible, fully flexible. I think that's all of them. And fixed, which reflects the modern world that we're in. So obviously, if somebody is fixed, they've got to come into the office every day and do that normal thing, which would be member of the one-stop shop or somebody like that. And then we've got that flexible working as well. So it all fits into the modern type, and it's all been through our employee satisfaction survey and all that type of stuff.
Right. Okay. So was it a list that you already had, or you've reframed it?
It's been developed over the last few weeks, and certainly it's fair to say that 2 years ago we wouldn't have had such a list.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you again for your comments on the information day, for which I thank the officers. They laid on an excellent day, and I think everybody said they enjoyed it. Our plan, because to keep members informed is really high priority, and doing that face to face is a good way of doing it. Our plan is to continue doing that and look to do that every probably 6 months or whatever, because we just think it's very valuable. Thank you. In which case, if I may direct the Cabinet's attention to the recommendations, item 3, that the Cabinet notes the content of this report, just ask you to confirm your agreement. Is that agreed? Thank you very much. Make a few comments about item 7, which is the corporate performance report. By the way, we've got the same 3 speakers, Councillors Purser, Beardsworth and Humphreys, in that order shortly. Overall, there's some really positive stuff within the performance, with a lot of it going absolutely in the right direction. We've got 3 new indicators included this quarter. Over and above the original agreed list, we've got the proportion of young people, that's age 16 to 18, who are not in employment, educational training, NEETs. Proportion of infants due a new birth visit, that received a new birth visit within the last 14 days, within the 14 days of birth. And the proportion of infants who received a 6 to 8 week review by the time they were 8 weeks old. Still leaves some further indicators that we're working on. There's some around exam results. We're waiting for exam results this summer, so that will be a new start. Portion of older people 65 plus offered reablement services following discharge from hospital. We have the numerator for this indicator, but we're relying on NHS data in order to measure it, so that will be coming along. Also, on the kilograms of CO2 emission within the council estate, We might touched on this in the Members' Day with you in the sustainability briefing. There's a complex measure to calculate. It's taking longer than anticipated to report a picture for West Northants. But what we have done, we've identified a greenhouse gas accounting tool via the LGA, which might aid us in that. But actually also since then, we've been taking advice from UK 100, who we've recently signed up to, and they have some other ideas too. So we're just not quite there with that, but we will start reporting that soon. A few highlights, I guess. Trees. So we've worked with the people who are leading the Queen's Green Canopy to identify and report planting of trees that's planned outside of those WNC initiatives. Some of these will be on WNC land. We'll be reporting that. Adoptions within 12 months, they are actually 100% during this quarter, and that's up 54% in Q2 and 64% in Q1. These are very small numbers, so treat with caution the variances in that, but clearly it's good news. Child protection plans for the second or subsequent time. The 3 months this quarter are the best performing months of the year, December having just 9% of those who had a child protection plan had one previously. A year to date is at 26%, down from 29 at the end of Q2. Older people 65 plus who were still at home 91 days after discharge from hospital. That's up from 70% in Q2 to 76%. Now, charging points, we have to give you a health warning on this one. We ought to point out actually the increase isn't real, but it's just because of the identification of further charging points across the WNC area. We believe we've now got all of the live points, so any further increases will indeed be from initiatives that we've implemented. Council homes, 10 further council homes completed in Q3, that's 27 year to date. But in addition to that, there were a further 241 affordable homes completed in Q3. So year to date, we're running at 365. Invoices paid within 30 days, a sustained increase now on those. So those are some of the key highlights. Perhaps what I'll do is ask in a minute the Cabinet to highlight anything in their own areas, but perhaps we take our speakers first, if we may, the first of which is, again, Councillor Purser. Bob.
Yes, Chair. I think it's very important we have outcome measures. I think they're very difficult, and I think they need to be checked carefully to make sure they actually show what they seem to be showing. And I think they're a very difficult area. I think they need to be developed, and I think we need to continue to develop them. And I think at the moment they are slightly random, and we need to get them relating to the plan as it is. So the key things in the plan the outcome measures need to be related to the plan. And I think we've still got quite a lot of work to do on doing that, and really making sure that those outcome measures relate to things that we can actually influence, so that the changes we make as a council actually produce changes in outcome, rather than measuring things over which we have no control. That would be my...
Oh, it's a really fair point. And you're right, really. We started with a clean sheet. What do we want to measure? So we've come up with a few things. It's evolved each time, I think, each time we brought it to Cabinet. Always open for any other suggestions. Hopefully there's anything else that we should be measuring. I agree with you slightly. It's about measuring things within our control. This is a measure of the council's success, isn't it? But I do come forward with any ideas that you think tricks we're missing. Thanks, Bob. Councillor Beardsworth next. Sally.
Just a few things. The robust resource management, the rolling annual staff turnover is 16.7, and that's the same as the previous period. Has anybody done any research into that to see if that's high, low, or, and look at some of the reports you're getting back from people leaving, just in case we can stop that turnover? The sick period, the average sick days, are we taking into account anybody that's got long COVID? or has had COVID and then maybe have another illness, because I know after 3 months, people only get paid half pay. That's just something maybe human resources could look at to make sure we don't penalise people for being ill in a pandemic. Right. This is improving life's chances. Children that became subject to the child protection plan for the second or subsequent time, that's dropped from 36% to 9%. So I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's something I think we need to looking at. And single assessment authorised within 45 days has slightly dropped, and we're talking about children that are going through quite a traumatic thing. So it's something I think they need to look at. Also, the proportion of people aged 16 to 18 who are not in employment, education or training, NEET, or not known, and that's dropped from 6.4 to 2.5. So that's in the right direction. Yeah, so that's good. Okay, and the other one I was really concerned about is school-aged children that haven't received weight management advice or support. That's dropped from 675 to 293. And
So
I just
have
wonder
or
whether there
haven't
was a
received?
reason for that.
Sorry, is that have or haven't received? I'm not looking.
Haven't, yeah.
Okay. So it's
Who
dropped. So
received
that's
weight
good.
management, yes. So if it was 675 in the previous quarter and only 293 in this quarter, that's a drop as far as I can see.
But in the right direction, isn't it? Those that haven't. So I'll bring
okay. Oh, so what do you
finish
mean?
off, and we'll bring
Yeah,
Fiona
okay,
in to confirm
maybe
that.
I'm reading it wrong, so apologies if I am. But it always makes me laugh when I get this one. Highways defects repaired within timescale, and it's great, really. But it's a lot of it's 28-week time frame, which is, and I know there are shorter time frames and things like that, but they always seem to be very successful. But this amount of holes and bumps and bangs about in the place, it doesn't seem as though that sounds logical, if you know what I mean. But I, as I say, that's just something of good. And can I also, rather than criticize, there's a couple more here. People using social care for to receive self-directed support, that's just dropped by 5 bits. So we need to just look at that. But I'll leave it on a high and say, well done, apprenticeship employment and substitute roles, which have gone up from 74 to 80. So that's a plus.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sally. I think you picked out some key ones. The child protection plan, Fiona will tell me if I'm wrong, but I think the point here is if you have a child protection plan, it's bad news if you have to have another one later.
Yes.
So the proportion of people who are having their second or subsequent, or children who are having their second or subsequent has gone down. In other words, fewer of them have been through that mill before.
We're conducting less, is what you're saying.
Exactly that.
That's fine.
It's working
Doesn't
first
read
time
like that,
is
but
what it suggests.
That's
Yeah.
fine. That's good news then. Thank
There's
you.
another one for Fiona. She might comment on that,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
also coming on the weight advice one, perhaps, or any other comments, Fiona, and then we'll go to Mike, perhaps on the HR stuff.
The child protection plan, we have actually had a lot of work with our police colleagues,
Yeah.
with some funding put in by the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner, mustn't forget the fire bit,
Yeah.
to actually work with these young people that were coming back to find out why they were and what we could do around that to stop that happening.
Yes.
So this is a good news story that we're working together with the police to make improvements, which we are now showing with that. The weight one is good too. That means that
There's less people needing
yes,
it. That's good.
children are
Yeah.
recommended to come to this service if their schools or judge them to be overweight.
Okay. That's
So
good.
we rely heavily on our schools for this information, and they have continued to be exceedingly good throughout the whole of the pandemic in supporting our children. So I just want to say that at this time too.
Yeah.
But it is a good story, that one.
Good.
So
Well done. That's lovely.
sorry, was there another one for me?
No, I think that was it, wasn't it?
Yeah,
But if we go to Mike on the HR, then we'll come to Matt and maybe Phil on KPIs for roads.
Sure, I'll be brief on staff turnover. It's stabilising, so we're slightly better than where we last period. I'm sure, and I can't quite find the stat, but I'm sure one of the predecessor authorities was in the 20s in terms of percentage. And what you really want to get to is a stable percentage, because you do want some new people coming in and people going out, moving on with their careers. So you don't want it too high and you don't want it too low. So I think we're seeing a stable position now, which is good to see. So I want to see that stability continue. And it's been a funny time of year, obviously, funny time the last 2 years in terms of COVID during the pandemic, to judge it.
Yeah,
What
thanks,
about
Mike.
the COVID, long COVID, if somebody's off with that?
Got-
Or if somebody's got COVID and then come back and then had to go in for surgery?
A
How are we
whole,
dealing with that?
yeah, a whole array of support for people with long COVID and people that have had COVID in the business. And I say it over and over again, if you're ill at work, whether it's COVID or anything else, please don't be a hero. Please don't come in and start coughing and spluttering all over the place. We want you to get well and we want you fit. And I'll keep saying it, and hopefully it will filter down to staff. We've changed as an organisation. We are promoting staff wellness, mental wellness, healthiness. So staff heroes that come in coughing and we're like, oh, I'm at work today, even though I'm ill, not interested. So please get well.
Thanks, Mike. We don't need that. Matt's going to make a comment, I think, on the social care question that you asked.
Well, I wasn't going to pick up on that. Sorry, Chair. I was going to say it's not my portfolio, but Sally mentioned the NEETs, and I did ask that we have the NEET figure reported regularly, because I think it's really important we keep a profile and see what our children are doing. And from history, we know that it's sort of a cycle that towards September, October, November, you've got the new academic year, you have a higher figure, then they sort of tail off. But I think it's really important we keep some profile around those kids that aren't in education or employment or aren't known. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. And then finally, now Phil's living and breathing key performance indicators for the new highways contract. Phil, aren't you?
Just to say on highways, Chairman, the figures are accurate. It is 99.6. But I think we all know that there are defects that don't qualify for repair. And of course, they're not in here. So if a pothole's not deep enough to qualify for repair, then it's not included. So I agree that it's not that clear in that respect, but some are to be done in 24 hours, some are to be done in 28 days, and the criteria for the individual paths is currently being met. We're actually looking at performance indicators for the new contract at the moment, so hopefully we'll see some change there. But yeah, it's a difficult one, Sally, but it doesn't cover everything. People still see the potholes, but unfortunately they don't qualify. But hopefully as we go forward and finance hopefully may change, and we may be able to improve the criteria for repairing potholes, which I think we would all like to do. While I'm here, Chair, you mentioned trees, and I think the interesting aspect of this is the number that people, parish councils, individuals and community groups are already committed to plant through the Queen's Green Canopy. I think it's 4,500 trees have been committed to being planted through that this year. So I think that's really welcoming, Chairman. And can I just say on electric vehicle charging points, again, something you mentioned. This report only takes us up to the 31st December. And we have, of course, been installing them, particularly the ones that we agreed to install in Northampton as part of the pilot. So they're not necessarily included in these statistics. And I think is it 18? I can't quite remember. It's something like 18. So there's 18 going in as part of the pilot. But we are still looking at ways we can extend that to rural areas as well, Chair.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks for your comments, Sally. And final speaker is Councillor Humphreys. Rosie.
Thank you. Just before I ask, could I ask about electric vehicle chargers and ask whatever happened to the one that got funding for in Long Buckby? Do you have any news on that, Councillor Larratt?
That's what I was referring to when I said we're still looking to try and identify
looking.
how we can get some piloted outside of Northampton. There was a company who came to us, who we're working with, who wanted to develop them in Northampton. They didn't want to go outside, but we are looking at ways that we can actually get them into places like Brixworth and the larger villages. Brackley, I know, is desperate one on the Market Square, or even though if it means losing a car parking space. But yeah, so we are looking. We do want to get them outside of Northampton as soon as we possibly can.
Sure, because that funding was awarded to Daventry District Council before its demise, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Going back to staff sickness and the projected absence, it's very good to hear, by the way, that you're promoting, as an employer, West Northampton Council is promoting staff wellness, but how does the projected absence compare with other local authorities?
I think it compares very, very similar to other local authorities, and it's so difficult to make comparisons when so many people were off sick with COVID. So it's a difficult one to judge, because obviously you had an enforced absence initially for 10 days, then did it drop to 7 and then to 5. So it's a difficult one to judge. I think what we're going to see hopefully moving forward is that that stabilize into, if you like, non-COVID related, if you like, normal sickness. So it'll be more interesting to see the stats, I think, as we move out of the pandemic now.
Okay, so there's no meaningful figure from the LGA or equivalent authorities because of the pandemic and
yeah, there's nothing really being focused on because everyone's
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Malcolm was going to add to that. Malcolm, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I could perhaps help you there. The projected, or it's around about 10 days, the average of the two. And if you compare that on an industrial basis, that's less than 5%. That's about normal. You'd expect to see in a factory of that size.
Okay. Thank you. And just on this very crucial data that we get quarterly, which is quite a long time, is presumably most of the data is collected on a monthly basis as well, and would it be possible for that to be shared on a more frequent basis in case, you know, in a particular area things start going pear-shaped and you know, we've got a whole quarter before we see the outcome?
Well, I wonder if I can let me reflect on that. I don't think we'd see a problem with it. What I'm keen not to do is sign people up for a huge amount of extra work if there's a sort of collation exercise here. I don't think we have any problem with more regular monitoring. Sometimes you see more meaningful trends over a quarter, don't you? Come back to you, Rosie, if I may, if that's okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you for your points. Thank you to all our speakers and cabinet members for chipping in. I think we've discussed that thoroughly. Recommendations, as always, at section 3, asking us that we note the contents of the report. Is that recommendation agreed? Thank you very much indeed. Okay, that takes us on to item 8, which is changes to our organisational structure. Is any new council, any new organisation coming together, develop new ways of doing things, and you identify where you need to move things around and so on. And we've certainly done that. We've come an awful long way in this almost first year of West Northampton, but there is no doubt that we've gone in this area from 25 or 30 directors and similar number of cabinet members down to a fraction of that number. We have as much daily business coming in, and we have a new council to put together too. So there's a lot of pressure going around, and we need to put the resources as best we can. So this is identifying a few changes, some of which you'll already know about. Transformation, it's proposed to make a change there. That's to change the management structure and approach in relation to the current transformation service and its delivery approach, which in summary is to embed transformation people within the departments, within each department, with people with huge ideas on how they can make the improvement. And we want to make them accountable for it and empower them to be able to deliver that with the support of transformation people. So that'll see a slight change in terms of how that's structured. That then takes the director heading up transformation across to a new area, communities and opportunities. This is the creation of a new directorate, existing person moving across to cover it. And by doing that, it also involves bringing in assistant director of post for place shaping. So this is our regeneration sort of an agenda where there's an enormous amount of stretch on the capacity that's there. So you'll see a new structure for that. On children and education, changes to the council's director of children's services arrangement and senior structure to manage children and education services. So this will result in a permanent assistant director of education. The focus needs to go very heavily on education. That is an area with the Children's Trust having taken a lot of attention, perhaps over recent years. We do need to make sure that we're right on it with education. That's something Fiona's right behind. Also, we want to bring it closer to the adult service, which is why we're making the wider people directorate. And then finally, emergency planning is a really crucial area. And it's vital, actually, that we have direct local control over our emergency planning. So as part of this disaggregation with the North, this means that the director of crisis include now emergency planning. Finally, public health, as you'll be aware from other discussions, we're looking for 2 separate directors of public health for the North and for the West. We have on this item 3 speakers in this order: Councillor McCord, Councillor Bidsworth, and Councillor Humphreys. So if we may, we'll hand over to Councillor McCord. Ian, welcome.
Thanks, Jonathan. So I've just got a number of questions on the proposals for transformation, and I'm seeking reassurance that what you propose will work and dangers and risks have been properly evaluated and mitigated. So I fully support the idea that the structures are constantly under review and you tweak them as we go and whatever, but transformation is the key to making the council work. And it's only by driving the synergies between the old 2 tier splits can we actually deliver better outcomes for residents. So that's the first question. What better outcomes will residents notice? And the proposal then seems to move the transformation into the departments. So where will the cross-cutting come from? How do you ensure that this is not a way for the departments to resist change rather than embrace change? How do you drive the change, and where will the challenge come from within? Because who's going to say, does this department actually need to exist? How will you ensure that this is not the continuation of silo thinking? And who or what is going to take the helicopter view and ensure that the departments put the residents first and what is in their interests and not what's in the producer interests? And how do you ensure that the transformation budgets are not a way for the departments and the directorates just to swallow the cash, but not deliver the change? And if the directors are also responsible for the transformation, trying to change the tire while the car's in motion, how do you ensure that the business as usual doesn't always trump the need for transformation? And I can't see any of this from within the report. And the funding also seems rather opaque and it's difficult to follow. Now, some of the costs seem to be shunted about, and the new hire costs, I think, just look low, but they seem to be coming from the contingency funds. So are we dipping into the contingency for the second time before the new financial year begins? Because from what I can work out, we're funding once for the £10 per hour commitment, and now we seem to be doing it for the increased senior director capacity. So these are the sort of questions that are going through my head, and I just want to know what's the real thinking behind it, because the report doesn't really give that. It tends to give the conclusions rather than the reasoning.
That's excellent points, Ian. I might hand across to the Chief Executive shortly, or maybe on the funding side to the Head of Finance. My overall assessment is that we've come a long way with the separate transformation projects, but there is a wealth of savings to be made within the department. So the better focus is on that. But I mean, I take your point about the synergies and the cross-cutting and the merging, and we always talked about the environmental health, working with the trading standards and all that sort of thing. So there is still a lot of that. There will still, however, be an oversight across the transformation. It won't all be within the department. So I think there will still be that helicopter view. I think on some of the other points, Anna, would you mind? I ask you to chip in and make a few comments on this.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I suppose what I'd say is the outcomes piece of work, which is the very vital bit about what our strategic priorities, was kind of touched on, wasn't it, earlier on in the transformation report with the West Brand design, where we sat down, all of us together as teams, to look at what our priorities were, and particularly what were the cross-cutting themes, like living your best life is something we've talked about a lot. And that's not just about, for example, children and adults, that's also about place shaping and the environment, the built environment. We agreed a whole set of cross-cutting themes we're working to. And so with those are a set of outcomes and measures that we'll talk about, are we actually achieving those things in that kind of cross-cutting way for people. We have a transformation board which measures all of the commitments that people have made, both in terms of service improvement and saving. It means that we have a director held to account in effect for the delivery of those outcomes and savings, to make sure that they actually happen, and we don't have a sort of difference between transformation trying to do to a service, if you like, but they're all again aligned to the corporate priorities. So in terms of actually measuring what are we doing and are they delivering on that investor save basis, that's all included in that monitoring, and that gets an output that comes through the transformation update as well. In terms of the cross-cutting, as I said, not only do we agree themes and outcomes, but the corporate services area is also continuing to own, for example, the ways of working, which is IT, buildings consolidation, digital transformation, all the things that need to happen across the piece. And that also includes working together for how we bring those two-tier services together and start to consolidate them and agree a priority set and way we're going to do that. Probably just to touch on, which I'm sure Martin can confirm, is the transformation team was already funded from contingency in the first year. So all we've done is rolled it into second year, which was always part of the budget, was always in the budget. But obviously that team needs to become self-funding over time. And the whole point of it is supposed to be that as we do more innovation and we do more sort of creative things, that extends and that pays for those resources going forward. And we've got a lot to do, not just here as well, but in the cross-cutting stuff with health. So I think all the assurances and checks are in place to make sure we get that cross-working and not sort of vested interest or silo mentality.
Okay, now I don't think there's anything further. Was there anything further? Anna May covered it. Martin?
Just to confirm what Anna said, really. So there is no draw on contingency for these plans whatsoever. It's funded through the transformation reserve. When the 21-22 budget was put together, there was 2-year funding funded through transformation earmarked reserves, and these plans come within those costs. So no additional draw on contingencies.
Okay, thank you. Hope that answers it as best we can, Ian, but I think there's a lot of what you say about the words, which I'll continue to bear in mind, knowing that we all know how important transformation is to the sustainability of the future of West Northants Council. Okay, thank you. Our next speaker, Councillor Beardsworth. Sally, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points on this. We were quite delighted when we read this report, because we'd actually talked about this with Martin before the budget, because we felt that transformation would work better as a matrix inside departments rather than outside looking in. They're inside looking out and actually seeing how each department works and where the pitfalls are, where the strengths are, so much better than being outside looking in. So we're quite pleased with that. I wanted to know who was doing the oversight for it, who will be in charge of the transformation team reporting to whoever, to make sure that what they're doing is achieving what we want them to achieve. And also the new assistant director, what experience have they had for the particular role that you're going to give them?
Thank you. Thank you. You're referring to the place assistant director, regeneration. We're recruiting for the absolute best. Isn't that right, Lizzie? Yeah. Great. Oh, it's available to any of you to apply, of course. But yes, of course.
Yes, we will be recruiting externally. We'll be going to the open market, but anybody internally is also able to apply as well. Be the best man for the job. We need to boost the team because we've got a lot going on at the moment. Or woman by that, but could I just say, International Women's Day, can I just say, it would be nice if some female people would apply to the place shaping department.
And the oversight chair, did you answer that? I can't remember.
Well, I think, you've raised an excellent point, but similar point to Ian, and I think Anna largely covered it with assurances as to how there will remain oversight across that. But did you want to add something further, Anna?
Thank you, Chair. So corporate services will sit over and Sarah will oversee the PMO, so the central function that does all the monitoring and managing, and that retains a transformation manager there. And then each of the directorates will have a transformation manager sat within it as well, who's kind of the link back to that central monitoring. So ultimately, there's a sort of matrix, as you said, to make sure we're tracking absolutely everything, but that the teams can then get on working with the exec director in each area to make sure they then deliver in those services, and it all reports back to the board then in terms of making sure we're on track.
Thank you, Sally. And then finally, Councillor Humphreys. Rosie.
Thank you. Just one question, which is where does sustainability sit within this leadership structure? So you signed up to UK 100 and pledged to, made your net zero pledge 7 months late, regrettably, but I shan't dwell on that. So sustainability and including, of course, climate change goals should be the most visible activity of the council. At the moment, it seems a bit of a buried add-on. So could you give us some reassurance about that, please?
Yeah, gladly. I mean, ultimately, it's got to be across every single department, and every single department has mapped their own activities against the UN sustainability goals that we're working to. So everybody is focused on it. In terms of the operation on it, there are two sides. The carbon reduction part sits under Stuart Timmis in his directorate, but in terms of the activity that's working on the sustainability plan, it's done through the Chief Executive's office, mainly with the Assistant Chief Executive leading the work in putting that together. So that's where the driving is coming from.
Okay. It's very unclear, obviously, from the information we had, but anyway, thank you for clarifying
No, not
that.
at all. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, that's great. With thanks to our three speakers on that. Any other cabinet comments at all? No, in which case, if I may direct your attention back to the recommendations, which as always are at section 3. Can I ask you to confirm your agreement to the recommendations, please? Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Takes us on to our last item of this evening, which is with Councillor Fiona Baker, proposal to fund a Football Association standard 3G sports pitch at a new free school in Wantage Farm, Malton. Fiona, we'll get you to introduce this, and we then just have one speaker, which is Councillor Rosie Humphreys. Fiona, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Seem to be having a football evening today. You will remember the new secondary school at Wantage Farm that recently went through our planning committee. And this will address significant deficiency for secondary school places in the wider Northampton area. So it is really a much wanted school, and we're looking forward to it being in place. The buildings will be funded by the Department of Education. Unfortunately, they don't fund any extra add-ons, which we'd like our young people to have. So the school will be run by the Northampton School for Boys Trust. And when built, it'll open in 2023. And this will specialise in sporting activities. The paper asks for S106 funds collected from developer contributions from Buckton Fields, which is nearby to the school, to support education. That's specifically been put by for education. Our obligation is only to pass the funding to NSB to actually put and to to pass the funding to NSB Trust and the Department of Education to deliver the sports fit pitch. We have no involvement in delivery or anything else, and there will be no other funding available apart from the amount that we've specified in the papers that we will give them for this, so there won't be any comeback for any extra. The proposal will provide sporting benefits to the school, and the wider community out of school hours will be able to use the facilities as well. And this will go towards promoting a healthy living agenda, which we're all signed up to. I think everybody agrees that every school should have top class sporting facilities for our youngsters. And I was very proud to see that our Brackley rugby team won something in the young young women's rugby team came away with cups at the weekend. So I was very proud to see that from a school locally to us. So it is really important that our young to take up sports, whatever their interest is. And I asked, the S106 funding is specifically for education, is specifically from Buckton Fields, which is the development nearby to the school. We do have a residue, and we will be looking to spend that before it needs to be returned to the developer in 2027. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. That's great. In which case, we'll now move to our one speaker, which is Councillor Humphreys. Rosie.
Thank you. Just some queries about the provision of these football pitches, the surface, which are known to have some carcinogenic features and have been banned in some countries, I understand. Has the council done any research on this, and what is the view on that, please? So that's one question. Another one is, does Northampton Boys School at present, are you aware, have a good reputation for letting out their facilities to the community? And will there be any control with the free school as to charging for use of the pitches? Because there is a problem with some schools pricing out local groups. They're not able to use these facilities. So those are my questions. Thank you.
I will look into the carcinogenic issue because I have no knowledge of that. So it is a concern. I will look into that.
Thank you.
We have to bear in mind that these schools are trust schools, so we have very little input into how they conduct their business. But prior to you mentioning that this evening, I have heard this evening earlier about various schools that have put high costs on residents using their facilities. So I think it's something that we can speak to our schools about in a positive way and ask them if they could encourage residents' use of their facilities more. So it is something on the agenda that I can add to. I'm currently visitor school every Friday morning. So when I go to the next one next week, I will be asking them how much they charge.
Great, because obviously it'd be difficult to pursue the healthy agenda.
Yes,
if
absolutely.
They can't afford to.
And also part of having a big school nearby means that you've got it. One of the pluses is that you have a possible use of their facilities. So we do need to make sure that residents are able to do that. So I will definitely be speaking about that. So thank you very much for raising that.
Thank you.
You know, it's a good point. We all have concerns. We see facilities where perhaps they're not accessible in terms of the limited hours they're open, or the cost that's charged that can prohibit them a little bit. So that's a really good point. We'll be urging NSB to ensure that they are both affordable and open for reasonable hours that allows local groups to attend to use them. We've got a couple of people coming in. Matt's just put his hand up, but first I had Adam and then Lizzie. Adam.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'd really like to welcome this proposal at the new school. It ties in very nicely with the extra investment that will be forthcoming from Northamptonshire Football Association and the Football Foundation for facilities elsewhere in the district. We recently agreed via the Football Facilities Working Group for an extra £250,000 investment in grass pitches across West Northamptonshire. But it's absolutely vital as well that we continue to provide artificial surfaces that can be used in all weathers and can have more use on them, and taking advantage of a new education, of a new school in Moulton, and actually just on the edge of Talavera, which is we know is one of the more deprived parts of Northampton, I think is a real positive step forward. And certainly from my perspective, when we have a look at the new facilities going in elsewhere, cost, interaction with the community, accessibility are all key features of what we're looking at, and that will form part of the new playing pitch strategy for West Northamptonshire when that comes forward later in the year.
Thank you, Adam. And my mistake, Mr. Phil out. So it's Adam, Lizzie, Phil, and Matt. Lizzie, over to you.
Yeah, I was just going to say I too welcome this paper. I think it's great news. There's just a couple of things. NSB have an outstanding reputation as far as the football world is concerned, and indeed their expertise, I think, will be absolutely vital to this. And I do know that NSB have fed into some of our major football teams, for example, Aston Villa and Man United. So I think that expertise will be absolutely wonderful for this new school. Excellent.
Thank you, Lizzie. Phil?
I wouldn't disagree with anything that Lizzie just said or what others have said. But my question comes down to accessibility and costs. We know, Chairman, that there are schools around the area. I can only speak from ones I know, and there's East Hunsbury Primary School, for example, completely priced out the market on the facilities that are there, totally unaffordable by the local scouts and other community groups, and they just can't get in there, whereas at the heart of the community and would be ideal. We're using Section 106 money to build these facilities, and Section 106 money, to my mind, is to benefit the community. And if we're not going to ensure that the cost of hiring these facilities and the fact that they're available when people want to use them, we are letting the people down by not utilising that 106 money effectively. So my view is that we've got to ensure that the pitches are available when people want to use them, not when it suits the school. And secondly, that they're available at a reasonable cost so that the local scout group, the local whatever youth group can afford it. I know this is coming from Buckton Fields. There is schools, secondary schools nearer to Buckton Fields than this one. So, you know, let's perhaps, if there's monies left over, that could be utilised there. But you know, how this directly relates to Buckton Fields, it's a bit tenuous, I would say, because I've been told you can only use 106 money in the locality, and I'd just query that at some stage, but let's not leave that for today. Great facility, but please, please, please make sure it's accessible.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the passion you put in that. You're absolutely right, Phil. And I think at a previous the NSB main site, there was an issue looking for 106 money, but at that point, that was not being made available for public use. And it was right that then 106 was not forthcoming for that. This is different. We have that assurance from the school. And I think what we're asking Councillor Baker, along with the officers, to do is just ensure that that is of some sort of sensible, average, medium, appropriate rate or something of that sort. A couple of people coming in, Matt, and then Adam's coming back in. Matt, over to you.
Yeah, just briefly, I of course support the paper and
rate or something of that sort.
Share the feeling that, you know, that's coming through Loudoun can do as a council, whether it's through public health or through sport or something, to try and encourage some, you know, a better level of accessibility and affordability for some of these things. And, you know, maybe through Section 106 or whatever. If it goes nowhere, at least we've had a look and we've tried. I think something that we can try, because it's in my patch. It's really frustrating. We've got these wonderful facilities, and I've been to parish council meetings where we've had a police report say, "Oh, we've stopped kids going onto the school grounds to play football." And I've said at them, you know, we should be not rounding them up, collecting all the kids up, giving them a football, and putting them in the school to, you know, occupy themselves and all the benefits that go with it. So I think there's a good strength of feeling and something we could, you know, go and have a look at doing.
Yeah. So where we may be moving to is ensuring that we've got good mapping across West Northants of those facilities that are available and the rates at which they're available to local groups. I know Adam was going to come back in. I don't know if that's an element you'd comment on, Adam.
Yeah, there certainly is mapping of football facilities being undertaken. Whether the price points are being specified, I'm can confirm right here, right now. Councillor Lowett makes an absolutely valid point. In the sport and leisure teams, we're very cognizant of the issue around particularly PFI schools, where they have built these fantastic facilities and then effectively closed them off to the public. The way that we're regulating accessibility through the initiatives that I'm leading on is through management agreements. When we're working with a private partner or a third party outside of the council's control, we're putting in place management agreements to regulate cost and accessibility for the local community. And I'd commend that to Councillor Baker as a potential solution in this case.
Thank you, Adam. And if he's going to come in there, can we ask if the mapping can be expensive to get a feel? I know it's a moving feast, but get a feel for the value at which facilities can be accessed. Fiona, you're going to come in with the last comment.
I was just going to come in. The only thing obviously within my control at the moment is to talk to NSB about their new facility that they're going to have. But I think as a cabinet, we should get behind and support this initiative through Adam to say, well, Councillor Brown to say that we want to address this with all schools and make sure that sporting facilities, whether they're being provided by 106 or not, should be open to local residents to use out of school hours.
And we recognise maintenance costs. These facilities are expensive. We recognise the need for security, which may mean security people going to lock places up and so on. We do recognise there are costs in these, but no, absolutely. I think that's exactly what we're urging. Good. Thank you for your comments, Rosie. I don't see any other hands. I think we've reached conclusion. So if I may on that one, we'd again draw your attention to the recommendations in section 3 and just ask you to confirm your agreement. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. That was our last item. So may I thank everybody for their attendance, all our speakers for their comments, the officers for the reports, and who would have thought you could do so much in an hour and 20 minutes? Thank you very much.